Welcome everybody to my today's presentation on social world and Roman Ingarden's views on ontology. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Artur Kosecki. I come from Poland and I work on the University of Szczecin. Okay, let's move on to the presentation agenda. First of all, I will talk briefly about the social world. Focusing on this point, I will talk about the main problems in social ontology. I will also talk about my motivations for comparing Ingarden views with Searle's views. The second point of the presentation is about John Searle's theory of institutional facts. I will briefly describe Searle's theory. Then I will present a critic of this theory. And next point, I will present Roman Ingarden's views on ontology. I will present his profile and I will describe his framework as interesting for social ontology investigation. Okay, next point, the social world. Social ontology talks about how to capture the relation between an object and the human, which result in the classification of this being and social. The discussions attempt to answer the questions. First questions, how does the social reality come to being? And second question, how does the social reality exist? Of course, John Searle was a philosopher who had a great impact on the contemporary debate on social ontology. The theory of Searle has faced a lot of critique. The opponents indicate that this theory is too narrow, that it does not explain how some beings come into existence, how they exist, for example, corporations, for example, constitutions. Referring to the assumptions offered by him, we cannot give satisfactory answer to our questions. I have to mention that the reflection how the world comes into existence and how it exists has a long tradition. One of the 20th century currents of those whose members were interested in first and second questions was phenomenology. I will tell you curiosity. The term social ontology appeared for the first time in the works of Edmund Husserl. Sorry, it's a title in German, but I will try to read it. Soziale Ontologie und deskriptive Sociologie. However, in the presentation, I will concentrate on Husserl's student, Roman Ingarden. In his philosophical INGARDEN'S, the Polish phenomenology dealt mostly with the classic controversy over realism, to which he devoted his life work, controversy over the existence of the world. In his magnum opus, he focused on the criticism of a transcendental realism of Husserl. I will consider what answer he could give to the questions about existence of a corporation, constitutions, and in consequences, how he would refer to our questions. Okay, next point. John Searle presents an interesting dilemma in his book, Making the Social World. In his social ontology, he attempts to explain how individuals constitute the objective social reality. The attitudes which are attributed to people are ontologically subjective, while the social world is epistemologically objective. John Searle asks our two questions implicitly here. How does the social reality come to being, and how does the social reality exist? Searle refers in his theory to three notions: collective intentionality, assignment of function, and constitutive rules. They deal with a dilemma, how the epistemologically objective social reality can exist while being constituted by ontologically subjective set of beliefs. I will explain it with an example. According to Searle, money is a very important social object. The object we consider to be money does not have the function only due to its external characteristic. It's money because we think so. We think so. Is that function for us? We emphasize that in theory, giving an assignment of function to an object is treated as if there has been an institutional fact. In other words, we give an assignment of function to a particular object, such as the performative in the proper context. We believe that this piece of paper is $20. Searle explains how the objective epistemological reality, which is constituted by a subjective set of beliefs, can exist, referring to the notions collective intentionality, assignment of function, and constitutive rules. Also, he answered the first questions and second questions. Answer is, the social reality exists because we give the assignment of function to it. As a result of this new social being are created. We can utter objective statement about such reality. However, the existence of the social world relies on attitudes we have towards it. I will now discuss a critic of their theory. In his article, From Speech Act to Social Reality, Barry Smith drew attention to ontological assumption, which had been adopted by Searle on the basis of his social theory. He proves that the social thinkers focused solely on the physical world. In his theory, he claims that we give the assignment of function to a physical object. Smith considered the existence of beings like corporations. He presents argumentation in which he points out that the existence of corporations should not come down to owning a fact, an office, or a president. The office of the company and its phone number might be changed, as well as the members of its board. Still, the corporation will last. The existence of an object like corporation is not a result of the existence of concrete and material objects, such as a phone or a desk. AMIE Thomasson expressed similar doubts in the article Foundation for a Social Ontology. In her view, Searle assumed the logical priority of brute facts over social facts. She means that according to his concept, social objects are dependent on material objects. As you can see, Searle seems to have a much more specific thesis in mind, namely that no social objects are created at all, since a proposed social or institutional object is really just a material object that's assigned a new function. In her argumentation, she proves that the social objects in Searle's theory are nothing more as material objects with a new social fact attached to them. She emphasized that in the social wars, we deal with such a being as the constitution of the unit state or the doctrine of Calvinism. They have close relation to individual material objects, for example, sheet of paper, have been written on. However, the being should not be identified with the particular material object of paper. She analyzed the existence of such a social object as a constitutions. Thomasson's point out that ever if the original document was damaged, it does not mean that the unit state would be deprived of their constitutions. Describing the mechanism of the social reality, Searle focused only on the physical world. That explains how the beings such as a corporation or the constitution of unit state exists present a problem is his theory. Therefore, it is doubt if the answer to the questions first and second can be satisfactory in reference to his theory. Okay, it's a very important point in my presentation. Roman Ingarden's views on ontology. Of course, you may ask me, who is Roman Ingarden? The Polish phenomenologist was born in 1893 in Tarnowo and died in 1917 in Krakow. He took his PhD under Edmund Husserl. He cooperated with Kazimierz Twardowski, who is considered to be one of the founders of the Low Warsaw School, a very important school in Poland. Ingarden had a critical attitude to the intellectual formation. He claimed that the methods of analysis suggested by its members are not too useful in the field of philosophy. This approach of Ingarden to philosophical issues was anti-naturalistic and anti-formalistic, of course. He presented his ontological research in a systematic manner in the book Controversy over the Existence of the World. I will say that this work was presented in 3 volumes. He wrote this work during the Second World War. Recently, the first volume has been translated into English. What is very important in his philosophy? Ingarden distinguished a metaphysical reflection from ontological investigation. He believed that ontology should carry out a priori deliberation of the possible modes of being. In ontology, we analyze the ideas of objects as pure possibilities which turn from them. In metaphysics, we are interested in what really exists in the world. Let's move on to his ideas from ontology. He believed that the description of existential moments will allow pointing out the differences between modes of being. Modes of being make coherent combination of existential moments. This is very important in his philosophy. His method, named logical combinatorialism. In other words, he understood that ontology means a priori deliberation over different existential moments which determine the possible modes of being. Because metaphysics say what is exists. When we talk about ontology investigations possible modes of being. In his work, he juxtaposes existential moment in the opposing or including groups. You can see on the slide. I will not go into details because there is a lot to be said about it. Okay. Next, Ingarden juxtaposes existential moment to point out what is ontologically possible. In his view, the ontologically possible beings include: we have a real being, idea being, pure intentional being. Pure intentional being is very important in Ingarden ontology. Absolute being. You can see the description of this being. They are a result of his methods. He mixed it, you know. I will speak of Ingarden and social ontology. Ingarden did not deal with the existence of the social reality as systematically as with the existence of real world. Therefore, referring to his framework, which he offered in the debate on realism and idealism, I will analyze how a corporation and how a constitution exist. In my analysis, I will use his methods of combinatorial ontology. You remember, Schmid and Thomasson pointed out in their argumentation that constitutions and corporations are no object which can exist in a specific physical manner. Ingarden agree this view. Ingarden say when we talk about physical being, he say real beings. The existence of those beings is contemporary. We can damage a piece of paper on which a constitution was written. Damaging a document does mean that the country has been deprived of constitution. Duration of a corporation does not boil down merely to the existence of physical objects such as a fact or a desk, which are fragile. So, corporation and constitutions are also no intemporal. They are not autonomous and original. Thus, they not exist autonomously. They are a product of a man, therefore they do not have an original character. They cannot be assigned with the same ontological status as universal and numbers in Ingarden's ontology. Objects, constitutions, and corporations do not exist as abstract beings. Their existence also is not intemporal. The mode of being is not similar to the absolute one. A corporation has been set up by someone, for example, president, that's thanks to the people who work there. Therefore, it is an object which is described autonomy and derivativeness. Its existence is not fragile, because its existence does not consist only of material things. However, it noteworthy without object like a fact or death, it could not exist. It is similar in the case of a constitution. Its existence does not boil down to the duration of a piece of paper. It exists thanks to the creators who wrote it. It has a lot of copies down. They are not considered by humans individual, and that's one which present dimensions of legal act. Therefore, it's a being which is characterized heteronomous and derivative existence. Objects, constitutions, and corporation can be assigned with the purely intentional existence in Ingarden's ontology. This is a word highlighting that AMIE Thomasson made an attempt to introduce purely intentional beings into the debate over the existence of social reality. She presented a dilemma similar to the one formulated by Searle in article Ingarden, the Ontology of Cultural Objects. This dilemma in this slide. She pointed out in her article that social and cultural objects are not specific, that it's problematic to talk about them, that they are only material or they are just a psychological product of human individuals. When we are talking about objects like money, church, or flags, on the one hand, they seem to depend on mind. On the other, seem to be objective parts of our world about which we may acquire knowledge. The question arises: how the epistemologically objective social reality may exist as is constituted by an ontologically subjective set of beliefs. In Ingarden's ontology, pure being will be relative. The Polish man thought that the pure intentional being is dependent on the creative acts of humans, individuals, and on the other hand, from a physical and specific object, which constitutes the basis of its existence. So, let's come to conclusions. On the slide are points summarizing my speech. First, the conceptual framework offered by Ingarden, the controversy over realism may appear to be useful in the debate on social ontology. Second point, In reference to his ontological analysis, we can answer to questions how the social reality comes into existence. The social world exists because of our mental acts and intentions. And next point, the object like corporation or constitutions could exist as purely intentional beings. So the social reality is so diverse and rich that in the discussion on social ontology, it's a word considering not only material and concrete object, but also abstract or, for example, intentional being. That is all for today. Thank you for your attention.